everybody, my name is Mr. Francy and welcome back to Mr. Francy Reads. Okay, so today I'm doing a hot takes video. I have been saying in my last couple of videos, if you have any hot takes, let me know what they are in the comments below, and I'm more than happy to discuss them. And today, I inspired myself. I heard a great quote on the US TV show Survivor in one of the episodes, be the inspiration for yourself. And so I decided, why not do my own hot takes? I'm going to do them by genre. I'm going to list, as many genres as I can get through in this video. It'll be a discussion type video as they usually are. And for every genre, I'll give you a hot take. So let's see what we come up with. Let's begin. Okay, first genre, cozy mysteries. Here's my hot take. I would love to read a cozy mystery where the mystery is 1/5, 6th, 7th, or 8th of the book. I would love to read a cozy mystery that is completely or almost completely dominated by the cozy aspect. In fact, I would love to read a cozy that completely bars the mystery. And y'all can come back to me and say, oh, but Mr. Francy, that would be a contemporary. No, okay? No, that's not what a contemporary is. A cozy is so sweet that you would not come up with a sweet, beautiful, kind, nice, lovely contemporary. If you have a contemporary that reads exactly like a cozy mystery without a mystery, please let me know. That's a hidden gem. I want it and I want it now. But I would love to read a cozy that has like 1/8 of the book is the mystery and the rest is cozy, or that is fully cozy and there is no mystery. Maybe if there has to be a mystery, the mystery is that the next door neighbor got a new puppy and we don't know that puppy's name and we're trying to work it out by the end of the book, because I mean, that's fine. That's a little side thing. But in the meantime, we are delving into the subgenre of that cozy aspect, whether that be the bookstore, the coffee, the candy, getting away from food. It might be the home decorating, the antiquing, the whatever it is. Okay, that's my hot take for cozies. I want a cozy that is 95% cozy, if not more. What do you think? Let me know. Oh, and also, I'll give you a bonus hot take for cozy mysteries if that's not enough of a hot take. I think that there are a number of cozy mysteries out there that are not worth the hype. I'm not going to mention what these ones are, but if you want to know, let me know. Send me a message over on Discord and I'll let you know. But there are some cozies that receive a ton of hype that I read some of the books and I think, I just don't get this. Why is this hype so up for a cozy? Like, I don't know. All right, we'll move on to the next genre. Contemporaries. Okay, all right. I'm going to fly directly into the face of what I was saying earlier about those who say that a cozy mystery without a mystery is a contemporary. When I say that my hot take is, if I'm going to read a contemporary, it must. There is no maybe or I might, or it's fine. No. If I'm reading a contemporary, it must contain at least one hard-hitting issue. If it doesn't, the contemporary lets me down. See, a cozy, and this is why it doesn't work for me saying that a cozy mystery without the mystery is a contemporary, because a cozy is a lovely, beautiful, sweet, soft, kind, nurturing, warm type of read, where a contemporary that is not hard-hitting is an everyday people doing everyday things sort of a book, where a cozy isn't always everyday people doing everyday things, because it's everyday people who might be doing an everyday thing in a situation that 90% of the world can't experience, which is very different to a contemporary. So if I'm reading a contemporary, reading everyday people doing everyday things to me seems pointless. That's my hot take. It is pointless to me because one of the reasons I read for many, but one of the reasons that I read is to read something about something that I don't or can't experience. So if I'm going to read about someone doing something that I could just as easily be doing right now, I much rather do that thing than read about someone else doing it. So therefore, what makes the contemporary work for me is if at the very least we have at least one hard-hitting issue. If we have more than one hard-hitting issue or theme in the book, it's going to be even better. A great recommendation that I can give you is Letters to the Lost by Bridget Kemmerer. That one deals with grief and loss incredibly well. There are actually a number of grief and loss contemporaries that I could recommend to you, but I definitely recommend that one. What was I reading recently? Eliza and Her Monsters deals with introspection and introversion incredibly well. And there are many others that I could recommend, but it must have a hard-hitting something or other. Otherwise, the contemporary is not worth my time. What are your thoughts? Fantasies. Okay. Here is my hot take, and I want to know how hot this hot take is. And by hot, for those of you who may not understand what I'm going for here, a hot take is like an unpopular opinion. So is this opinion unpopular or not? Let me know. When I read a fantasy, okay, is it too much to ask that whatever book I'm reading, whether it's a standalone or most of the time in fantasies, it's a series, no matter what book it is in that series, that particular book I'm reading is dominated by the fantasy and not something else? Because if a fantasy book is dominated by something other than fantasy, then it is literally a wolf in sheep's clothing when it comes to this fantasy. It is a romance in a fantasy clothing, or it is a sci-fi in a fantasy clothing, or it is a contemporary in a fantasy clothing. In fact, I'm currently reading a cozy mystery right now that has a magical element, but it does not hide itself as a cozy mystery in fantasy clothing. No, it is a cozy mystery that just has a little bit of fantasy in there. But if you're marketing a book as a fantasy, the dominant theme must, to me, be fantasy and not something else. I love friendships. I love found family. But if I'm going to spend 90% of the book of a fantasy following two characters who are completely obsessed with each other to the point that it's not love, it's obsession, that is not a fantasy for me. But here is my next hot take. A fantasy is not going to work for me if the fantasy aspect of the fantasy is boring. I have words, Cassandra Clare. Not all of her series, but fine. I'll just say Infernal Devices was not for me for many reasons. But there are many other fantasies that I've read where I've just thought, I'm picking this up for the fantasy because I know that there's something fantastical that's going to occur in this book or series that I'm going to love. And then that fantastical thing is not exciting. And that lets me down. And I can also add Lord of the Rings to that, which a lot of people are not going to like. That's a hot take. But part of the reason why I didn't like Lord of the Rings was because the fantasy element of Lord of the Rings just didn't interest me. It just really didn't. So if I'm picking up a fantasy, it must be the book itself, whether part of a series or a standalone, must be fantasy dominated. And the fantasy itself, the fantasy aspect of that fantasy must be interesting. It is not enough for me to read a subpar interesting fantasy and think that this is amazing or even potentially to get through it. It must be interesting. And to that end, I will recommend the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare. The magic system involves using runes on your body to enact certain magical abilities. The Mistborn Era 1 involves ingestion of metals, and those metals give you certain abilities as well. I'm sure there are others that I can think of that I can't think of particularly right now off the top of my head. But I'm sure there are many, many others. So There you go. The fantasy must be interesting. Otherwise, what is the point? And the fantasy must dominate the fantasy book, or otherwise, what is the point? Classics. Okay, this probably will be an incredibly hot take. If you don't think I've had a hot take so far, here you go. I get it. A classic is a book that not only was written a long time ago, we'll come back to that in just a moment, but it is also a book that must stand the test of time. Because just because a book was written a long time ago doesn't mean that it is a classic. That does not a classic make. It still must hold the test of time. That being said, if I pick up a classic and the words thee, thy, thou make an appearance, then that book is destined for the lovely lane that we call DNF, because it's just not going to work for me. I got through. I don't have the copy anymore because I lent it out to my mum. The Beauty and the Beast by Gabriel Cézanne Bardot de Villeneuve. Okay, I had to think there, but I didn't look it up. That book is the original work of Beauty and the Beast. You may know of that story from the very famous Disney original animated film. This is the original work. It was incredibly tough for me to get through because of thee, thy, thou, thou. Thee, thy, thou, thou, thou's probably not a word, I just use that, but thee, thy, thou puts me through a tailspin. I took English literature back when I was in high school because I love reading, but the moment we picked up Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, and whatever the heck else, I knew I was done because it just doesn't work for me. Because why? The word work. I have to work for my reading. I have to translate as I'm reading, and it does not work for me. So classics need to have a language that I can easily read and not have to translate as I'm going along. And if you want a great example of an easy classic to read, I would highly recommend A Christmas Carol. Oh, Christmas Carol? Christmas Carol, I believe it's called, by Charles Dickens. That is probably the easiest classic I've ever read. It reads like a standard book. Highly recommend that one. Also, Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne, as well as its sequel, The House at Pooh Corner by A.A. Milne. Very easy to read. And there are a number of other books that I found incredibly easy to read as well. So that's my hot take on classics. I love my classics, but I need to be able to read them. Okay. If you're not a fan of horror, skip to the next one. But let's go now with horror. My hot take on a horror, especially an adult horror, which these days, if I'm going to pick up a horror, I am most commonly going to pick up an adult horror, is because it's an age rating classification of adult. That means that there is no line you cannot cross. If I'm going to pick up a horror, it better be a horror and not a light horror that somehow found its way into the horror section and it was miscategorized when it should have been a mystery or it should have been a thriller. In my view, a horror must do at least one of the following: gross you out, freak you out, creep you out, force you to want to leave the light on, or convince you that you're going to have a nightmare. If it's not going to do that, it is not a horror, in my opinion. Pet Sematary is not a horror, in my opinion, by Stephen King. Pet Sematary, while a brilliant study in grief and loss, it is not a horror. However, The Housemates by Ian Rob Wright is absolutely a horror. Okay, that's my hot take on a horror. If I'm going to pick up a horror, it must, and it's an adult horror, it must go there. It must push those boundaries and affect me in a way that a horror is meant to affect me. And I think one of the reasons I have such a big personal issue with horrors that aren't going to go there and affect me in that way is because for the longest time, I personally struggled to consume horror as a visual medium. So my compromise was to read the books. I finally desensitized myself enough to get through the entire Saw series, but I struggled to begin with watching Saw #1. Now, if you haven't seen Saw and you're not a fan of horrors, don't watch them. If you have, you're probably laughing, going, you struggled to get through #1. How'd you get through the rest? Because #1 is quite lame compared to the rest of them. But I did. When I was watching that first Saw, I was an adult and I was struggling to get through it. But what I loved about it was there's a psychology behind what Saw does. And I always wanted to read it if it was a book. And I still don't know to this day if it's a book. I've been wanting for years to look up if it is and still haven't. I should. But the compromise for me is I can read horror. I have no problem reading horror. But if I'm going to read horror, horror needs to have a profound effect on me. Otherwise, it's not a horror. You need to do something, okay? And seriously, I'm kind of at the point now where if a book you've written should be classified under the genre of a gothic book, please call it a gothic book and not a gothic horror, because I've read a couple of gothic horrors which to me don't come across as a horror. They do come across as gothic, don't get me wrong, they certainly do, but they don't come across as a horror. Maybe that's just me. Let me know your thoughts, but there's my hot take. If I'm picking up a horror that is an adult horror, it must do one of the following: gross me out, freak me out, creep me out, force me to leave the light on, or convince me I'm going to have a nightmare. If you're not going to do at least one of those, you're not a horror. If you do all 5, you're an amazing horror. And I will also recommend another book, which is Cenote by Sean Horton. This is a novella. It is an hour-long on audiobook. I highly recommend it. It did all of those. I did not have a nightmare, but it did still convince me I was going to. Very well done, Sean Horton. LGBTIQ+. Okay, as a gay man, I have the right to have this hot take opinion, and no one can get upset with me because I'm part of the community and I'm saying this. Maybe it's me, maybe it's my age range, maybe there are a number of other factors that you need to keep in mind with me having this hot take. Regardless, my hot take is I am done, D-O-N-E, done with the coming out trope. I am so over it, and it's because I've read it way too many times. Can I please, please, please have an LGBTIQ+ book where the man, the woman, the boy, the girl have already come out, it's established, it's accepted, no one has an issue with it, and the issue that we come across, because most of the time with LGBTIQ+ books, they're either going to be a contemporary, a romance, or a contemporary romance. Can the issue that's going to come up not be the coming out? Can that already be established and therefore the issue becomes something else? And with that in mind, hot take number 2, because you get a bonus with this one, I am over in LGBTIQ+ books. I'm over this, and you know what? I'm over it in romance too, so maybe I should leave it for romance. Okay. I'm going to tell you something when we get to romance, and then I'll go back to here and say this was the bonus that was going to be for LGBTIQ+. So at the moment, my hot take for LGBTIQ+ is I'm over the whole coming out thing. I get it. It's fine. They can keep it, but I just don't want to read it anymore because I've read it that many times. So let's just have a character that is gay, lesbian, bi, whatever the heck they are. It's absolutely fine. And let's have everyone just accept it. They don't have to love them. They don't have to hate them, but everyone accepts that that is the way it is. Now let's move forward into chapter 1 so that the issue that comes up has nothing to do with the fact that they are part of the LGBTIQ+ community. It just is an issue that comes up and they just so happen to be part of that community. All right, rant over. We'll get to romance soon enough. My next take is mystery. Okay, for a mystery to be good, the mystery itself in that mystery book must be compelling. I can almost forgive a letdown with the reveal. So I can almost forgive a reveal that lets me down, provided the lead up to the reveal has me running, my mind just running like cogwheels in my head on a very fast speed because I'm trying to work out what it is because I'm so excited and compelled by the mystery that is going on. And in that case, I must give a shout out to the 7.5 deaths or the 7 deaths, it depends from country to country, of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. Really, the reveal did let me down, but this is like a 500-page or something like that book that compelled me all the way through to the reveal, and I think I still gave it 4 or 4.5 stars because despite the reveal really letting me down, the rest of the book's mystery was so compelling for me. If it's a mystery, because if the book is categorized as a mystery, because that's really the only thing that it has going for it, because a mystery, there are so many different types of mystery-ish genres out there, but if the book is literally just a mystery, then the only thing it has going for it genre-wise is the fact that it is a mystery, and therefore that mystery better be gosh darn good. If it's not, then it is going to be a disappointment. And I would much rather have a compelling mystery that takes me all the way through to the reveal that ultimately lets me down than a mystery that bores me that I may not even get to that has an amazing reveal at the end of the book. So that's my hot take. I know that there are a lot of people out there who the star rating they give for a mystery is all based on just the reveal at the end, but not for me. That is my hot take. That is my unpopular opinion. No, those first 3 quarters had better compel me, because otherwise, what else does a mystery have going for it? The whole point of a mystery is the mystery itself. So that in mind, let's now move on to romance. Okay, so the way I differentiate, and this is just me, LGBTIQ+ is not a genre. LGBTIQ+ is a Mr. Francy genre that allows me to differentiate between LGBTIQ+ romance contemporaries and romances and contemporaries versus straight male-female romances, contemporaries, and romance contemporaries. Yes, they are 3 separate genres. Romances as genre 1, contemporaries as genre 2, and romance contemporaries as genre 3. Okay, so let's talk about romance. My hot take for romance is the bonus I was going to give you an LGBTIQ+, so it goes for both. My big hot take for romances is the breakup trope. Oh my gosh, how much time do you have? How much time do you need? Okay, if you're unaware that in any given romance, or in fact 95% of romances, the only way to cause drama is for there to be a breakup, I'm so sorry to break your heart to give you this revelation. Please do feel free to scold me in the comments below, but it is high time that I discuss this because it annoys me and I'm sick of making that a spoiler-free thing, but in a generalized video like this, I can say it because it's a generalization, and it does happen in most romance books. Now here's my issue, because I need to make this incredibly specific. I get it. Drama is the essence of entertainment. I may not personally feel that it is for me, but I get that overall, statistically, the majority of people out there view drama as the biggest point of entertainment. In a romance, there is only one way to experience a drama, and I get that that one way is for the couple to break up. Well, I would get that that would be the one way to cause drama if, and this is a very big if that was the only way to cause drama in a romance. Do these romance authors not take a moment to just think outside of the norm and think that there are many ways that we can cause drama without it being the breakup that everyone that's read a number of romances would come to expect by now? I mean, after I'd read 5 romances, be they LGBTIQ+ or straight male-female romances, I had come to expect it. I have cynically gone into every single romance I've read since then and thought to myself, okay, let's not get too attached because we all know at some point, probably about 3/4 of the way through the book, they're going to break up. So let's just prepare ourselves for that. But there are so many other things that they could do. What I don't get is, and I haven't come across this yet, so if you have, please let me know. I can only talk from the experience of the books that I've read. But from the books that I've read, I don't get how not one romance author that I've read from their books yet has come up with the idea to make the drama something that both people in the relationship are fighting together on, which would only serve to make their relationship stronger. Instead, the drama becomes about them breaking up, so they are fighting each other. Why not have it that they're in a relationship and they've bought this house together, which is wonderful, but they have someone who doesn't like them, who wants to burn their house down to the ground. So they worked together to try and stop this evil thing that's going to try and burn their house down, which makes their relationship stronger because they're working together against what the drama is. Help me out here. Am I standing alone? Why does the drama have to be a breakup? I don't get it, and to me, that is not romancy, that you have to break up. If it seems realistic to me, okay, I'll deal with it, but a lot of the time, a breakup in a romance that I've read tends to happen because it serves for the drama, and the author sees inevitably that they have to do it at some point, and so it's just slapped in there because it's a requirement, and it doesn't read as something real, it just reads more as something that is required because, whoops, almost forgot to break them up here, so let's quickly break them up here for a chapter or two, and then bring them back together because that's what's meant of me. Like, I don't get it. You tell me what you think. Next up, we have dystopians. Okay, so you're probably thinking, but Mr. Francy, dystopians are a subgenre of something. My comeback to you first and foremost is cozy mysteries are a subgenre to mysteries, and secondly is actually my hot take. And that is that a dystopian isn't necessarily a subgenre to sci-fi. It amazes me that dystopians, and if you didn't know this, then hi, welcome, and I'm glad that I can introduce this to you because I didn't know it either. Apparently, so you're not alone in learning this now because I had to learn it myself and it shocked me when I found out. Apparently dystopians are a subgenre to sci-fi. As a dear Australian Mr. Rove McManus used to say with a headline on his variety show, what the? Like, really, what the? How is a dystopian a subgenre to sci-fi? Maybe aside from the fact that dystopians are usually set in the future. I actually don't know if I've read a dystopian that's set in the past, so I think they are all set in the future. And I guess, in a way, sci-fi can be set in the future because we could be talking about technological things that haven't been invented yet or that are futuristic. So I guess in a way, because of the fact that it's set in the future, it can be seen as a branch off of sci-fi, but I don't get it. A dystopian to me is any type of book that deals with the opposite of a utopia where everything is grand and perfect and beautiful and everyone's happy. It's an environment of discord and chaos. And so to me, it should be a genre that stands out on its own. So my hot take when it comes to dystopians is no, they are not a subgenre to sci-fi. They are a standalone genre and they are amazing. A not so unpopular hot take is a dystopian must have amazing world building to work for me. World building being anything that builds up the world that you have written about. Be it in a dystopian, the class or caste system, the politics, or whatever it is that has caused this particular world or part of the world to erupt into chaos. If that doesn't stand strong in a dystopian, it's not going to work for me. Some great examples I can lead you to is the first book in the Divergent series, Divergent by Veronica Roth, as well as The Hunger Games by Susan Collins, book 1, as well as the Selection series by Kiera Cass, when you focus on the dystopian aspects, because the Selection series is, after all, a dystopian. Next up, we have sci-fi. Okay, you want a hot take on sci-fi? Here it is. If it is set in space and we are dealing with aliens, I am out. I don't care. It's going to bore me. Goodbye. The only sci-fi that works for me that fits this description so far is the Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson. Why? Yeah, you guessed it. Because it's written by Brandon Sanderson, and I actually enjoy it because Brandon Sanderson seems to write for me. And I appreciate that he does. Somehow he found out who I was in among the millions and millions of fans he has and said, I'm going to write for Mr. Francy. And he did, and I appreciate it. Mr. Sanderson, I'm in your debt. But aside from that, if it is set in space and deals with aliens, I don't care. If it is a show that is a sci-fi that has the word star in it, like Star Wars or Stargate, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. My love of sci-fi comes down to two things. AI, witty AI. I have to be specific there. It needs to be an AI character that's included as part of the crew that we have, that we're following, and they need to have a great sense of humor. A very witty sense of humor. I love that. And also anything that's kind of futuristic, such as a time-traveling machine or something like that. That I really appreciate, because to me, I used to think that kind of thing, like a time-traveling machine, would be fantasy, but it's sci-fi because it is more technological. So I understand that. But yeah, my hot take for sci-fi is, if it is set in outer space and we're dealing with aliens, I'm out, I'm bored, I don't care, it's not for me. I'm about to hit the final genre that I'm going to speak about on the head, but before I do, if there are any genres that I've not mentioned here, please do feel free to let me know. Whilst I was going to mention memoirs, I think that I don't really have a hot take for memoirs that would fit. A memoir is a non-fiction, I think of what the word was there, because I read a lot of fiction. A non-fiction book that details certain significant events throughout a person's life that they write themselves. I think with memoirs, really, it comes down to what the person's writing, if I find that entertaining or not. I'm very subjective when it comes to memoirs. I'm going to pick up a memoir of someone if they are someone of interest to me that I wanted to read about anyway. So I don't think I'm well read enough with memoirs. I've probably read about 10 or less memoirs in my reading life, and so I don't have enough experience, and so I let that one go. As for standard non-fiction, I definitely don't have enough experience with those because I am definitely a fiction reader, so I'm not commenting on that. And with westerns, I don't plan to pick up one because when you're someone who's been exposed to some amazing fantasies, the idea of two men wanting to go into a battle with nothing but a gun and saying, draw, it's just so boring to me. Am I wrong? Like, I just can't think of anything more boring. Really? You're going to kill each other with a gun? Really? Like, it's not entertaining to me. It's just not. So there you go. There's a hot take with a genre that just doesn't appeal to me. So, but if I've missed any others aside from this last one, let me know. And if I've read enough of that genre, I will give you my hot take. Also, leave your hot takes in the comments below, whether you agree with me, disagree with me, want to comment on what I've said, or want to comment on something different to what I've said. Let me know, because I want to see what your hot takes are. Alright, my last hot take genre is thrillers. Okay, if you've followed me long enough, you know what I'm going to say. If you haven't, here we go. A thriller, which is another genre that connects to mystery. So we've got mysteries, we've got thrillers, so we've got We've got cozies to the left. Imagine that Mr. Francy has a whiteboard in the background, because back in my day we had whiteboards and blackboards and not iPads. But anyway, I have a whiteboard behind me. I've turned to the whiteboard, and on the left I'm writing the word cozy mystery. And I put a circle around that and then draw a line that connects to the center where I'm writing the word mystery. Put a circle around that, then put a line that goes to the right, and I'm writing thrillers. Then below, and put a circle around that, then below that I put a line and write the word horror and put a circle around that. That is how I see it being connected. Mystery is the center, then you have your cozies, which are lighter, your thrillers, which are darker than mysteries, and then your horrors that are incredibly dark, that most of the time don't even have a mystery. So thrillers are your darkest, grittiest version of a mystery. Now, why is a thriller called a thriller? In the simplest, shortest way to explain it, a thriller is defined as the genre thriller because it is a genre of a book that is meant to, yes, I know it's a surprise, thrill you. It is meant to have you on the edge of your seat all the way through the book. And so in my opinion, because that's what a thriller is defined as, and yet, ironically, I feel like this is a hot take, if a thriller does not thrill me and have me on the edge of my seat all the way through the book, then it is not a thriller. Okay, that is my hot take. It is a mystery in thriller clothing. A thriller must thrill. It must have you on the edge of your seat. It may not have you on the edge of your seat until the end of chapter 1. That's fine, because we need an introduction. But from the moment it starts thrilling you at the end of chapter 1, and I need to say that, because if a thriller is not going to thrill you until halfway through the book, that is not a thriller. Do not give me, in a 20-chapter book, do not give me 10 chapters where I'm bored out of my mind waiting for the thrilling action to start. That is not a thriller. But you can have the first 3/4 of chapter 1 to lay some foundation. That is absolutely fine. But by the end of chapter 1, you better have me on the edge of my seat, because otherwise this is not a thriller. It is not thrilling me. Every value break by Peter Swanson needs to either go through the wood chipper, I shouldn't say that, needs to either go through the wood chipper, or it needs to be recategorized as a mystery, because it is not a thriller. But that's my point, my hot take on thrillers, is it needs to thrill you. And for me, it is not enough to thrill me at the end of the book, because if you're planning on thrilling me at the end of the book, guess what also does that? The lightest form of mysteries, cozies. Cozy mysteries thrill me at the end of the book, because if the author has done their job well, they are going to rip the rug out from under me to the point that I am thrilled and on the edge of my seat with this entire reveal that they are giving me. A thriller is meant to invoke that reaction out of you from the get-go and have it there all the way through to the end, and including the end of the book. So my hot take on a thriller is it must thrill, but it must thrill at least from the end of chapter 1 all the way through the book. Otherwise, it is literally a mystery in thriller clothing, and I call fraud. Okay, but those are my hot takes. We've gone on a little longer than we usually do here, but hey, I wanted to give you all the hot takes that I could. So, what hot takes do you have? Let me know in the comments section below. Once again, if I've missed any genres you'd like me to cover, let me know that too. If you have any hot takes you would like for me to specifically be discussing, or any other categories of hot takes to be discussing, please do let me know that as well. Let's talk some hot takes about books, shall we? But in the meantime, that is where I am going to leave it, letting you all go with peace, blessings, and so much love. Please do be kind and love one another, and spread your sparkling energy all throughout the world. And until next time, happy reading. Bye, everyone.